All right. Greetings and peace, everyone. My name is Neo, and I'm here to give some info to the people. Thank you very much for tuning into my Krisha channel, Committed Relationships and Spiritual Activity, which I could have just said spirituality, but back then I really wasn't thinking about the title. But anyways, like I said, my name is Neo, and to give you a brief background of myself, many years ago, I went through a breakup with a woman that I was dating at the time, and she said that I had potential, but I wasn't. Overall, she just said that I wasn't the one for her, but I had potential, but I just really wasn't there yet. Which she was 100% correct, because I was not prepared for relationships, for a committed relationship, and I'm glad that I had that experience at that time, because once she left, I sat down with myself, by myself, to really think about what's going on, and I said to myself, okay, well, what's the next best thing for me to do? And then my ego said, well, just go ahead and move on to the next relationship. And then I was like, yeah, that's exactly what I'm going to do. Then when I sat there a little while longer, my spiritual self came through, the spirit came through and said, what makes you think that you're prepared for another relationship? And then boom, I stopped everything, and I said to myself, you know what? That is actually correct, because I've never was actually taught relationships from either of my parents, which my parents, they divorced when I was the age of 4, and my father was in and out of my life, and he officially left and didn't come back when I turned 16. And my mother was always at work, which she still was throughout my teenage years. So I was one of the many children who did not have direct teaching and guidance regarding relationships and life itself in general. So I had to go on my own quest, and it turned out to be a personal development journey, because I started off learning about relationships, and then it turned out to be about my whole personal development journey, because I realized throughout the process of learning about relationships that it's important to to develop a holistic health. Now I've learned about a holistic health, being holistically healthy. That means spiritually healthy, mentally healthy, and also physically healthy, to prepare us for life, to develop a strong psychological foundation to work with throughout our life, and to be able to understand all major aspects of ourselves. And those are the major aspects of ourselves, including that ego. That is what I'm going to talk about throughout this process right here. This recording here is the ego projection. Most people do not truly understand the ego, and our society does not do a very good job clarifying it for the people here in America, especially. So this is what I'm going to teach people about, what I have learned throughout my years of analyzing the ego, and also doing various studying from different books and also videos about the ego. But in particular, largely analyzing my own ego and paying attention to the thoughts, the feelings, and beliefs that it gets me to accept and to demonstrate. And if a person is unconscious of what's going on with their ego, they will literally be controlled by their ego, as most people do, and they'll be saying and doing some very stupid things. So throughout my personal development journey, I have gained a lot of information, a lot of knowledge, a lot of wisdom. So that's why now I provide my personal development services to other people as a personal development consultant. So that's what I do as a personal development consultant. I help people start, and within and throughout their personal development journey, I help them out with that. So let's go with talking about the ego. What is the ego? And a lot of people have different definitions and different understandings of it, but this is coming from my understanding of it and my analysis. So the ego, let me put my stuff down right here to the side real quick. Okay, now the ego, in my opinion, is this. First, it is already fully installed within the brain of a human. As long as you have a human body, you have an ego personality. Just like as long as you have a Android phone, you have one or more Google apps on your phone. It comes automatically installed. Just like if you have a Apple iPhone, you automatically have a Safari internet browser app. It's always automatically installed. Now with us, the ego is automatically installed by our creator. And I'm telling you, if you really study ancient texts, your creator of this world and of this human body is not as as highly divine as he wants you to be, to think of him, and also as our world societies and our world governments and also religions have him appear as highly divine. Yes, the body is an amazing thing, but it's not really an amazing thing once you really get on a high spiritual expanded consciousness level. I'll just say that. So now this ego is really the lower human self. It is the animal human self. That's why you'll see people who are arrogant. They act more animalistic, seeking survival. Those people, it gets people to seek out survival more than anything. So when a person is on that survival level, the only things that they can think about is eating, going to the bathroom, entertainment, sometimes into entertainment, but mostly eating. They're always worrying about something that of survival, like a reptile. That is on the lower part of the human brain. That's the reptilian part of the brain. And if you go ahead and study reptiles, you can see the only thing that they're focused on is safety, what's good and what's bad. That's primarily what they're focused on. That's the animalistic level, and that is the ego, part of the ego also. So what the ego does is it's a personality mechanism that's within the human brain that causes us, and it's the left side of the brain predominantly, that causes humans to have certain, it's a self-serving personality. That's what it is, self-serving. So you'll get thoughts, beliefs, ideas, and you'll hear those voices that give you those negative ideas, those negative thoughts that tell you that you can't do this because of this and that, when you actually can if you really just focus through on those things. Let me see what else it does. It overall keeps you on a human level. But if you are on an expanded, higher spiritual level, you know, and you have already experienced and you understand that you are more than a human, and that this is not you anyways. This human body and this human existence is just your experience that you are experiencing. It's just your character that you decided to choose. And the person that you call yourself as your name or your career, that is your ego. That's not the real you. The real you doesn't even have a title, and it doesn't care about titles. Titles are only for humans to keep their life and their mind in categories for the sake of order. And it's your silly little ego that keeps you having to feel like you always got to have a title or a name for something. And I definitely know this for sure, because this is how it is with me. Me being on a higher spiritual level, expanded level, I realize how ridiculous this thing makes me feeling like I have to have a title for every little thing. I'm like, oh my God, it's ridiculous. And it's analytical. It's highly analytical. It analyzes the hell out of everything. It'll have you doing that also if you're if you're not aware of it and you're not conscious control of it. You just be sitting there. You see those people that just overanalyze every little thing. You're like, yo, relax. It's going to be okay. Just relax, let go, and let God. Let go and let God. That saying is actually let go, let the Spirit take over, and things will manifest the way that they're supposed to manifest. That is something that people do not understand because they're stuck in their ego. So, with that ego personality being in front of everybody's decision making and it's their overall filter, is very, very limiting. It limits people's viewpoint of life, their decision making, what they can and what they can't do. This is why people have to really study and comprehend what the ego is and understand, learning to live through their spiritual higher consciousness, their divine consciousness, rather than their lower ego, because their lower ego, it will always keep them on a self-serving point of view. And self-serving also, when those people who are overly generous, where they're always seeking to help other people and always giving, and they're rarely taking care of themselves, including their mental and physical health, that again also is the ego. Because the ego, it's projection. I call it the ego projection. What it does is it will do whatever it can to cover up the person's insecurities. So a lot of the times when you see a person where they're overly generous all of the time, and they rarely are paying attention to themselves to help themselves as far as their personal health and their overall sanity, there's a good chance that that person has one or more major insecurities, and their ego is projecting out a false stability, a false adequate health. It projects false artificial maturity. And you can go get the book Artificial Maturity. That is a very, very good book. And a lot of these so-called adults here in America especially, who think that they're an adult because they have a car, and this is what it is. This is how it is in America. For all of the people who haven't realized this in general, but especially the ones outside of America, this is what American society has gotten people to believe here in America, that is. And this is so silly, and this is what I've analyzed throughout my years of a personal development journey, and also fasting from TV and food. Because you have to, if you want holistic health, you have to also fast from TV, social media, the radio, and definitely pop culture music. The music that you hear from on the radio. Also, once you do all of that, you clear out a lot of that junk that's inside of your brain, because the TV is what I call the neuralizer, just like Men in Black. The neuralizer, it neuralizes a person's brain, keeping them from accessing their higher spiritual consciousness and keeping them on a human level. If you are dominated by your humanity, that is what is going to keep you from your higher spiritual consciousness, and you're not going to be able to live a meaningful, fulfilling, peaceful, truly peaceful life. And true inner peace is overall oneness within yourself, oneness with your higher self and your overall being, where you understand all levels of yourself and you don't have all of the unnecessary desires. And I know this as a fact because I'm often like that throughout the day, especially when I take care of my body throughout the day with my exercise, adequate water, adequate sleep, less food in my system. I have that overall feeling of oneness where I don't have desires. And it's the TV that feeds people external, secondhand desires. So that's what makes people want to have a car. And there was one time I was sitting down watching TV a few years ago, and I realized, like, yo, Look at all of these car commercials. Almost every time you watch a TV show and even a sports event, you will always see at least 3 or more car commercials, and sometimes even more. And I'm like, this is ridiculous. And every single year they come out with a new vehicle. And now, being on a much expanded spiritual consciousness, I realized that that is one of the world's pop propaganda, especially here in American society, to be more materialistic. As the Bible says, that materialism is a trap. And that's one of the things that I mentioned. I think I mentioned that in one of my psychological trap series, that the materialism trap. You can go ahead and check that out on my homepage on my YouTube channel here. I have a list of psychological trap videos that I created, that I discovered, all the different main traps that people are in, that we have here in America especially. And that's what I've identified throughout my years of personal development. So let's go back and talk about what American society has people thinking. So now, as an adult, it has people thinking that you have to have a car, you have to have a house, and you have to have money. And nowadays they're pushing the career. So now there's a new psychological trap that I've identified, is the career trap. That's the career trap, and I've learned this. Now, it is okay to have a career, definitely, but that's after you have developed holistic health and you have full comprehension of holistic health. Spiritual health, mental health, and physical health first and foremost. Then you worry about the finances and all of the other stuff afterwards. Me, I was not taught this, and I have not realized this until I'd done my personal development completion, large amount of it, and this years later, after my mid-20s. And now I'm developing my holistic health even more. And me doing this, I see a lot of people who are unhealthy on all of those levels. But guess what? They have all of those material things. They have a car, they have money, they have a career or a job, and they think that they are an adult. And they do not realize, here in America, a large amount of people do not realize how childish and immature they look on a variety of those minute, subtle levels. And even when a person walks in a room, I'm on a level psychologically and psychically too, that when a person walks into a room, I can already tell all of the major areas that they are deficient in, starting with the mind, by me reading their energy, because we have an electromagnetic field around us that is sometimes called an auric field. And our auric field is largely controlled by our mind, which is our thoughts, our beliefs, and also our heart. The heart is precious, and that is what is divine, not your silly brain. And the other thing I've analyzed and realized is that it is the human brain that is our virtual reality device. So if you want to really talk about virtual reality, well, then you already have a virtual reality that you were born with, and that is your human brain. See, you have to understand this stuff, because if you don't understand your human brain and what it's doing to you and giving you these illusions of this human reality, then you have a long way to go. Now, understanding that, I understand that I have to take care of this brain if I'm going to live a successful and especially peaceful life. And I am extremely peaceful within myself. Now I know who are the peaceful people, who aren't. So just because you have a car, a house, a money, a job, and a career, those are only aspects of adulthood that can be taken on as options if a person wants all of those things. However, you've seen many Tibetan to how do you say, Tibetan monks who don't have all of those things at all, but yet they are still on a higher spiritual expanded consciousness, and they are much more adults than a person who is a celebrity, a person who is so-called considered wealthy, who's a billionaire, a millionaire, and who has all of those material things. Because it is those material assets, those material possessions. If a person has not developed the appropriate, adequate mental health and spiritual consciousness, then those material possessions, including your career, can be actually distractions more than anything. So that's why when people talk to me about them having a car, they went to college and yada, 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 me knowing what's going on, if the person hasn't done their true personal development work, I know that that's all just illusions and distractions. That really doesn't, that means little to nothing to me and to a lot of people who really understand spirituality, especially with that darn school. Public schooling really is a joke. And yes, it has some adequate information that can be utilized throughout life, but you have to have a certain higher consciousness to be able to go into these these academic institutions, soak it up, filter out all of the BS and soak up the real deal stuff and come out unscathed and still be on a high level, if not higher. And you still have your mental health in order, and you have not been indoctrinated, because the schooling, especially here in America, it's an indoctrination rather than an actual learning. That's why schools fail to do teachings about the universe. We have universities, but they don't teach about the universe, at least on a public level. It might be some kind of covert courses that they teach to certain students and people. That's a possibility, because I tell you this, that there's a lot of these universities have underground areas, underground and hidden areas in different walls, and they have different secret entrances, and there's a whole lot going on. There's a lot of money going into these universities, and they're doing a lot of covert things. When you get on a higher expanded spiritual consciousness, you will be able to perceive so many different things that your society that you live in do not tell you, and that they won't tell you outright, and expand upon what's going on, because they want to keep this stuff hidden. So that's all I'll talk about regarding that. So now let's get back to the ego projection. So the ego projection, what it does is it has a person to it puts that projection as if the person is actually okay and healthy, and it makes people think that because they have those material possessions, that they're actually an adult and that they're healthy and things are going okay in their life. But no, a lot of people, like me, studying this and analyzing this for myself, and actually doing all of the fasting that I talk about and doing meditation, I realized that a lot of the people, the more material possessions a person has, a lot of the times, the more they're covering up from their internal deficiencies. So you see those people running out worrying about, oh, I gotta go get a car, Oh, I'm gonna get this car too, I'm gonna get that one too. And they focus on having multiple cars. They want to always have the biggest house, the biggest jet, eat at these big, huge restaurants. And they're so obsessed with all of these external material things rather than focusing on their spiritual development and mental development. These are individuals who are still stuck on their human consciousness, and they're allowing their humanity to dominate their mind and their everyday life. That's why they can't perceive higher spiritual concepts whenever you try to talk to these individuals, or whenever they come across this type of information. They don't want to sit there and understand these concepts because they're not on that level spiritually. And also, many people's heart chakras are closed. Individuals who have not gotten their heart chakra open, they can't perceive this higher spiritual information. So that's why when you try to talk to them, there's always something crazy that goes on, because they don't want to hear it and they can't hear it, because it's literally like a distortion to them when they hear higher spiritual concepts. So let me see, what else can I say about this ego projection. It overall puts on a false artificial identity, artificial maturity. So when you see people walking around who talking about they're educated, and nowadays you got these women talking about they're independent women, and also the music, I'm not going to say what artists, but the music has definitely gotten a lot of women into the mindset of being an independent woman, when in actuality it's not about being an independent woman. It's about uniting with us men and allowing us to share the load within life, and especially within the family unit, so that you won't have to be worried about being independent fully, and then you won't have to end up producing a large amount of testosterone that causes you to look like a man when you're supposed to be looking like a woman. And you're walking around in these suit pants, tight as heck, thinking that you're actually doing something, when you know you got to get your mind right and your spirituality right, so that you can get that oneness within inside yourself, rather than worrying about having a career so that your ego can walk around and say, oh, I'm a CEO and I'm independent and I don't need a man. The propaganda has gotten a lot of women, men too I'm talking about, but I'm talking about right now this independent stuff, and now understanding manhood and womanhood. I see now it was meant for us to have a oneness together, not to be separate single parents, not to be single people walking around talking about how we're grown adults just because we have these material possessions. So when I see all of this single independent stuff from women especially, I know that those are women who have been indoctrinated by the TV, the music, the radio, the magazines, and the books. That's why women have to get out of that stuff and get back to that oneness within themselves as far as the spirituality. Let go of all of the external stuff that has been distracting them, or at least decrease it, especially cut off that TV, go on that TV fast. You will be amazed at all of the dysfunction that you will start to perceive. Just as me, I start to see the dysfunction as far as a man and a woman, the way that society has people thinking that it's okay to be a single mother. And now that I understand manhood and womanhood, I realize, like, yo, it is not cool to be a single mother. And they got these TV shows, and I'm not going to mention the name. They got these TV shows with these pregnant young females, teenage females, making it look as something okay and desirable to be a single mother. And not only that, to be even a mother at a teenage age, when they have not developed the adequate overall holistic health in general. So it's like being pregnant during your teenage stage, especially here in America, when you have not went through that personal development process to evolve yourself to a mature adult that is ready, prepared for a baby, then that is actually a impediment that delays of overall psychological maturity in an individual, especially if she becomes a single mother within her teenage years. That's a big, huge load on a teenager. So throughout my years of analyzing a variety of single mothers who actually became pregnant throughout their teenage years rather than later on in life, I've seen on average that the majority of them are still unhealthy spiritually, mentally, and physically, regardless if they have that career, that car, that money, and that nice home. And I can tell you, by speaking with these individuals and even listening to them speak, just in another conversation with somebody else, I can tell you where they're dysfunctional and their deficiencies. But again, it is just the society. It programs people, and all you have to do is start to do more fasting, do meditation as much as possible, whether it be traditional or just spend time by yourself in silence, and you'll be amazed at how clear your brain will start to be, because it's the brain that has all of these actual chemicals, including the brain waves, that causes dysfunction within a person's thinking, feeling, and understanding of life. So, and this goes for everybody. That's just not women. That's just an example that I came up with, because you do have issues with men also who are who think that they're better without women. And you got this other propaganda, and I'm not going to name it because it's going to be ridiculous comments, but it's another propaganda that's been going on for many years here in America especially, but around the world, that's been keeping men and women separate, thinking that it's better to go on their own way, when no, us as men need women, and women need us. And we need each other as oneness together, just as the Bible explains. One flesh, becoming one flesh, that means oneness with each other. Peace, prosperity, love, unconditional gratitude, unconditional generosity, full maturity in that overall state of being. Not this dysfunctional relationships. Oh, you did this for me. Okay, I'll help you out with this. Or what have you done for me lately type of mindset. That type of mindset is a lower human ego mindset. That does not help out relationships. That does not improve relationships at all. That actually makes it be a roller coaster relationship, as most people here in America in particular have. They have roller coaster relationships where it's always a up and down. It's very rarely consistent. But if people get on that spiritual oneness state of being, and this is as individuals working on yourself and working on each other, but in particular working on yourself as an individual before you even commit to another person to get in a relationship with. That is what I have been doing. So now I'm much more prepared psychologically, spiritually, and emotionally and physically for a committed relationship with a woman, because I know the importance of having that feminine energy in my life. Men, you do need that feminine energy in your life, and women, you do need this masculine energy in your life. Don't allow society in general to tell you that it's okay to be single by yourself and that you can take on all of the load. No, especially as a single woman and a single mother, especially you taking on all of that load. I don't like to see single mothers now that I see what's going on. It bothers me a lot to see a woman take on all of that load. So it's like whenever I see single women and I actually can help them in one way or another, I do. And that's why I highly respect my mother, regardless of her immaturity. And I'm telling you, oh my God, this is where I've learned a lot of my information studying my family. My mother is the number one immature individual of our family of 5, including her. And studying her ego and her behavior has actually influenced me to create this video right here, this recording right here. So that's what I've learned, the ego projection. And that's why I tell people that you don't truly know someone until you have lived with them and or have went through some kind of project with them that caused them to that causes a need of mental effort of some sort, and seeing them go through adversity, seeing them when they're happy-go-lucky because they have money, they got the new car that they wanted, they have a lot of food in their refrigerator, they got nice clothing, and they're happy-go-lucky. That's not the only image that you should accept and utilize as a way to gauge if they're healthy holistically. No, that's only one aspect. You have to see how they respond to adversity and disappointments of any sort. That will indicate what level they are psychologically, and also paying attention to their decision making, because our decision making lets us, it demonstrates our current beliefs and which ones are dominant. Yes. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and close out right now. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, you can go ahead and put it in the comment section. And definitely, and keep that in mind, if you do that in the comment section, it's going to be public. But if you want to talk about that in private, you can email me at NeoOnenessSubliminals@gmail.com. That will be in the description, same as my website will be in the description, leading you to my personal development website, where I have a wealth of information about the mind and services to help you get you started on your personal development journey, because you have to get on that journey now. And I don't care if you are a celebrity, if you got all of this money, you just started your career, or you have had your career. I'm telling you, as long as you were born in a unsupportive family, or wherever you were born, if you did not have that personal development process throughout your childhood and your teenage years to help you be more an evolved, mature adult, there's more than one or more major psychological, emotional, and spiritual deficiencies that you currently have that needs to be resolved now, so you can have much more successful, meaningful, and peaceful relationships, a peaceful life, a peaceful, successful, meaningful career, and being peaceful, loving within yourself right now. Thank you very much. If you want to hear more information about this, you can, more information like this regarding personal development and spirituality, definitely go back and check some of my older videos. Click the subscribe button if you want more information for the future. Make sure you hit the bell button if you want email updates. Like, comment, share, definitely subscribe. Thank you very much, and until next time.